Welcome to Turtle Talk. This is Morgan's story and the family's journey. I'm Craig, and
Hi, Michelle. Welcome.
so we've been talking about surrounding yourself with positivity and other things of that nature, listening to God's little hints, and we kind of left on a cliffhanger. So I'm anxious to figure out what the hell you were talking about with what your revelation the last couple
My
weeks.
revelation in the last couple weeks has been, well, let me back this story up a little bit. So I was in Walmart and I was with Morgan and I was on the struggle bus. I'm always on the struggle bus, though, like always with
You got a
her.
lot going on.
And you know, I used to laugh when the triplets came. I would I would put two babies in one cart, one baby in another cart, and I'd be filling the cart up with groceries. So I'm pushing one, pulling another, and pretty soon I'm pushing one and pulling two, one with groceries, one with baby and groceries. And people would look at me like, oh my God, how do you do this? Well, you just do. So, struggle bus now with Morgan. It's not triplets anymore. It's Morgan. That's my struggle bus. And I had gone into Walmart. I was just grumbling. And I get over to electronics, and this guy comes up to me and he says, I really need to pray for you and your daughter. And he just started praying. And he's like, you know what? Just have faith, and you're doing great. Just keep it up. And gave me a big hug, gave Morgan a little kiss on the top of her head, said, God bless you. And off he went. I mean, this guy, come to find out, he had said he had followed us around the store trying to catch up with us, because I was kind of zipping around and stuff and he didn't want to impose. But when we stopped in electronics, he felt it was a good time to stop and just talk to us. And I thought, wow. So then that same trip, I'm like, you know what? Thank you, God, for giving me this messenger to remind me that there is good all around, and I just need to find the good and not focus on the bad, right? Because it's easy to focus on the bad.
Yep.
And so anyhow, I'm going about now. I'm getting groceries. I did the other side of the store first. Now I'm trying to get groceries, and all these people, everybody is oblivious. Our favorite saying is that they're situationally challenged.
Yep.
They don't pay attention. People are cutting me off. Aisles are crowded. Nobody's budging an inch. And I'm trying to get back to the peace that I just had over in electronics, and I'm just getting frazzled. Well, by the time I started at milk and ended up at produce, I'm ready to rip somebody's eyeballs out because people are unkind and they're oblivious, and it was such a struggle. And I get up to the checkout and I'm just like, put my hand on a shelf and I'm like, huh. Here comes this big old guy. He's got this retired U.S. Navy hat on, and he says, ma'am, I don't know if you hear this enough, but you're doing a great job. And he says, do you ever just get kudos or anything? And I said, well, once in a while, people tell me. And he's like, no, like really tell you, you're doing great, Mom. And he says, you probably don't hear that enough, but I need to tell you that. And he grabs me and gives me this big old bear hug, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, how sweet, like that's really what I needed at that moment. And he says, don't let anybody get you down because you really are doing great, And so then we end up sitting and visiting for a little while and stuff. And then I finally get to check out. So then at least I left the store with some peace because it had been up and down throughout the store. Well, then a little while later we had gone to Lincoln and I go to church, go to that special mass where I'm just like, I'm a down on the bottom of the totem pole looking around at these other parents and stuff, and I'm asking my friends, like, how do you know? Like, how do you know what your calling is or what God's directing you to do? Because these people are pretty faithful and they're just amazing people. And They're like, you just have to listen and you'll know. You will know when the time comes to you, what you're being directed to do. And I thought, well, that's no help, but okay, whatever. Like I need someone to crayon this for me. I'm a
Right.
crayon person, right? So I don't know, a few weeks later, I'm back at Walmart again. I really hate that store, but it's like a necessary evil,
Right.
is what Walmart is, a necessary evil. And
It's got everything.
I'm getting out of the car with Morgan. It's like 8 o'clock at night. We're trying to get back to the house. We had to run to town to Menards. We needed some supplies urgently for this project we're trying to get done. And we had a water leak and and it's 8 o'clock at night. I need to get something for everybody to eat. I needed milk for the house. We haven't had supper. I'm just right? And I'm trying to get out of the car and I'm just struggling getting the wheelchair out of the van and making the ramp work and everything. And here's this lady parked in the spot. I'm parked this way and she's pulled in like this. And I get out and she goes, ma'am. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, are you with this company? And I said, no. And she says, oh, whoever this company was must help disabled people and give them shuttle rides and stuff. And I said, no. I said, this is my daughter. And she's like, oh. And she starts talking and she tells me the story about her son. And her son still lives with her in his 30s because when he was born, the cord was around his neck and he was not breathing. And so now he's got some neurological deficits and stuff, but she takes care of her son and, she takes him to Walmart and gives him 2 items to go get and just enough cash for it. And he's got to go shop and sometimes it takes him 10 minutes, sometimes it takes him an hour, but this is his independence, and she's telling me this whole long story and stuff. And then she asked about Morgan, so I told her a little bit about Morgan. I always try to be kind of brief, just because usually I'm in a hurry. I'm trying to get stuff done. And then she said to me, she said, oh, I bet you get annoyed when people like me stop you to ask questions. And I wanted to say yes. But then it hit me and I said, you know what? I said, a friend of mine told me not too long ago that God has a calling for each of us. And I said, this happens a lot to me. People stopping and visiting and wanting to know about Morgan, but then also wanting to tell me their stories. And I said, so sometimes I get annoyed because I really want to just get in and get my stuff done and get out. I said, but I think you just helped me realize that my calling is that I need to listen. And because whatever I have to offer is what you need to hear when you initiate the conversation with me. And she says, oh, that's so beautiful. And I realized that all these interactions that I have with people is God placing people in front of me that for some reason or somehow I'm helping. Whether it's just listening, whether it's like that's my purpose that he's given me. And the tool is Morgan.
No.
Because they wouldn't normally just stop and talk to me.
Right.
But Morgan is that doorway.
She's your icebreaker.
That's opening these doors of these people that God keeps putting in my path. So then I thought, wow, this happens a lot.
I'm gonna say that was kind of what I envisioned for the podcast, to be a door opener for people to ask advice,
Right.
get answers. You've been through a lot, courts, medical, TBI.
Right.
And you guys learned from knowing nothing to you're probably one of the only experts on earth, dozen, maybe 50. I don't know how many there are, but everything you've done for 9 years now.
Right. I've really studied. Tom and I study everything. And, like the medication issues,
Yeah.
going from so many meds down to this more integrative health stuff. And we're constantly learning. And, I'm bumping into people and they're like, oh, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, I advocate a lot. And now I have a lot of people calling and saying, hey, can you help so and so? Or can I give them your number? And, I'm working with this lady in Minnesota right now who's got some issues with her daughter. And I called her, I gave her some advice, and I said, if you need any help or need me to come sit with you, I will gladly do that. And I tell you what, I've really been able to help them. You know, Advocacy isn't always kind, though.
No.
And I will gladly hold anybody's hand, listen to them, give them guidance. Where I struggle with that process is not all people is as strong as I am.
Right.
And they're afraid to confront the doctors, or they're afraid to do that. So I give them all this advice and then they never follow through on it because they're afraid. And my advice to people is, you're the only advocate. You have to not be afraid. What's the worst they're going to do is say, you're not going to be my patient anymore?
Right.
They're going to fire you from being a patient, or your daughter or your son from being a patient? Okay, that's great, because they were not meant to be your doctor then.
Right.
You move on to the next person. It's okay to ask for a supervisor. It's okay to make waves, because if you don't make waves, who else is standing up for your loved one?
Right.
And I find that in all these interactions, there's a lot of give, but there's a lot of take, because I'm learning, and whatever these people that I encounter have to say to me, there's a message in that I needed to hear. So it's definitely a two-way street. So I am greatly rewarded. I may be burdened, but I'm also rewarded. So to me, it's never a burden. Sometimes it's a little frustrating when I'm in a hurry, but then I have to remember that God puts these people in my path for a reason, and I need to stop and listen. And like I said, I've just recently figured this out. So when I take this approach at looking at things now, it's like, wow, it gives you a whole new perspective on bumping into people. Now, my family, on the other hand, get really frustrated. They don't even want to go to town with me anymore, because it's never just a quick trip in any store. It's never.
It's that common.
It's that common. It's never a quick trip into the clinic. It's never a quick trip into Mayo. It's never a quick trip anywhere, because almost everywhere I go, and almost on the daily, if I leave the house, there's at least one person that I end up stopping and visiting with. I can't remember the last trip to town that I've had where I haven't been stopped by someone. As a matter of fact, my husband was working out in the hills for a while, helping his boss and work on this house. And so there were multiple trips to Menards to pick up supplies. And this one employee really honed in on us, and she was very helpful when I needed help. And at first she was a little snarky, but then I realized she was just kind of having a day, and, kindness goes a long ways, right? And so anyhow, we've made so many trips into town, but every time we've gone into Menards, it's like her Morgan radar comes on and she finds us in the store. Like, she works in this one department, and she may catch a glimpse of us and she will beeline across the store just to come and say hi and see how things are going.
Yep.
And I thought, that is so awesome.
It's cool.
Even the gate guy, he has long conversations with Tom, every time we come, because we've come so much, and Tom's been there with Morgan and with me. And, it's just, it's pretty amazing. It's like I don't know, it's kind of a gift.
Yeah.
Kind of a curse,
Yeah. It's a gift.
but it's a gift, So I was sitting in church the other day, like writing down all these different thoughts. Like, you know, you need to find that time to just be quiet.
Okay.
To calm yourself and just be in the moment and just let stuff come to you. And I found that I got to start carrying a little notebook because I'm writing on envelopes and I ripped a page out of the book and, like whatever. But I was thinking back to that mass, like I really hope these other families have an angel like we have. We have someone who's very generous to us, who asks for nothing in return but friendship, and he's so positive, and he's such an amazing person, and you just see God in him. He's just someday he will be a saint because he's a saint on earth right now.
Yeah.
And there's nothing greedy, no ulterior motives, just true friendship, true guidance, and just truly an angel to us. And I remember thinking that I hope everybody else sitting in the church that day had someone that was their angel too, because we're so very lucky that he's our angel. And you know, I was talking to another mutual friend saying, he's just so astounding. And she had said, she says, he's the kind of guy that just does stuff without asking. And he does it because God's calling him to do it, and he listens. And I just thought, wow, here's a guy who really is hearing and listening to what he's being called to do. And there's just no hesitation. If he heard, you need to give this person your last $100, he would do it without even questioning it. He wouldn't say, oh, well, how am I going to eat, or how am I going to do this? He just does it. And yet he's always provided for, God provides. He provides everything if you just listen and do, and he's pretty astounding. And I just keep thinking that, wow, I really hope other people that are on these walks of life like we are blessed enough to have heard and seen and have their angels. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, I just always think that everyone comes to you with a message. Like even you and I just hanging out and visiting, I'm sure there was a message there that you needed to hear. What it is, I don't know. So something I said hopefully gave you a message, and something you said gave me a message. But it's whether we hear it or not, and
I'll probably hear it on my drive home.
you might. Sometimes you don't hear it right away. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Yesterday, sitting in church, there was this family behind us, and this mom and her little girl, the little girl was asking about Morgan. And this mom reminded me that I am a good mom and I'm doing right by Morgan. And the way she was so kind and gentle in explaining to her daughter that, Morgan has an owie and that's why she's got to be in the wheelchair and stuff. And Morgan had been drooling. She's got this new medicine to moisten her gooms, but it makes her drool a lot. And I reached over to wipe her mouth, and the lady said to the little girl, she said, see, she's a really good mom because she takes really good care of her daughter. And
You'd cry.
I did. I did cry. I'm trying to hide these tears. And she's like, she says, God loves all of us and God gives everybody the mom and dad that they're supposed to have, and
Oh man.
and I turn around when it's time to, greet each other. And I turn around and I realize they're a mixed family, which means they're probably foster parents or adopted parents. And I grabbed her hand to say, peace be with you. And all that could come out was, God bless you for being such a wonderful person. That's what I said to her. God bless you for being a wonderful person. And I tell you, that one got me. I know. It kind of kicks your butt, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's in moments like that when I'm doubting whether I'm doing right by Morgan and all my kids. And then I hear that. And then I know that it's all going to be okay. Right? Because Morgan told us that in the beginning.
Yep.
It's going to be okay. So, yeah, there we go. God's little messages come from all over the place. There's some that just tug at your heartstring. And that mom, it was so innocent for her explaining to her child, but for me, it was like the boom of God's voice behind me saying, you're doing good. You're on the path I want you on.
Yeah.
So when in doubt, just listen.
Isn't that funny?
Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. We love hearing from you guys. So keep the comments and the questions coming for us.
Yes. Love the questions. Please subscribe. Go to www.givemorgan.org or visit me at my real estate website, realtorcraigbertrand.com. And we always want your questions, comments, like, and share wherever you listen or watch.
Thank you.
Thank you.